It may be at a different time, but we're still bringing you the same great Alabama football content on a Friday, wrapping your work week up on the hottest show on the streets, number one form for Crimson Tide football news, notes, and information in my own words with yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine, coming to you from the magic city of Birmingham. Appreciate everybody tuning in to today's show. We're streaming the show to you through YouTube. Speaking of a channel, go ahead right now and give the show a thumbs up, like the show, run those likes up. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn all of those notifications on so that way you can have the best and alerts, updates, and content on your favorite program, that being the Crimson Tide. Not only are we bringing this to you through YouTube, but we got you covered also on Facebook and Twitter as well. All forms of social media keeping you up to date here on your Alabama football team. And as always, we got a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, a lot to get into. Happy to have you guys in here. The show brought to you by WeOwnTheFourthQuarter.com. That is WeOwnTheFourthQuarter.com. If you haven't done so, go ahead right now. Copy that four-finger bling necklace, four-finger bling jewelry. Show them that support for Coach Saban, the University of Alabama, the student athletes, and us here at TDA. That's WeOwnTheFourthQuarter.com. Gotta shout out my man John Ivory in the production studio, doing his thing on the day. And as always, we want you, the Crimson Tide fan base, being a part of the show. You can be a part of the show by calling 205-448-1358. That is the number to dial to let your voice be heard, your opinion be made known on the show. 205-448-1358. And one more time, 205-448-1358. A little bit later on, we're going to be joined by the scouting and recruiting analyst for TDA, our own Justin Smith, to talk about a young man by the name of Elijah Brown, who has committed. He's given his verbal commitment to the Tide in the 2022 class at the tight end position. So going to get a chance to speak with our own Justin Smith here later on in the show. But as always, Tide Nation, we got our $75 daily super chat go. $75 daily super chats. We appreciate the support, the love, the passion, the enthusiasm from you, the Crimson Tide football fans, helping us out here on the show. But to get into now, topic number one of the conversation today, there's been a lot of dialogue. There's been a lot of commotion about one Henry To'oTo'o, the talented inside linebacker, and will he make the move to come to the Crimson Tide? And I've talking going on social media about what's going to happen with one Henry To'oTo'o. This is somebody of whom Alabama targeted heavily in its 2019 recruiting cycle. He was high on Alabama's board. Of course, he chose to sign with the Tennessee Volunteers over Alabama, and with the NCAA recruiting violations that were reported that took place where Tennessee is concerned, 9 coaches were terminated, including head coach Jeremy Pruitt. There were quite a few players that entered their name into the transfer portal. One of those guys was To'oTo'o. Now, there were rumors out there that discussed, maybe he goes back West Coast. To'oTo'o, a native of Sacramento, California. So there were a lot of rumors that maybe he goes back to the West Coast. Maybe he plays at Oregon. Maybe he plays at USC. But according to sources that I have spoken with close to the situation, and of course To'oTo'o's father mentioned that, those rumors are not true. He has two options at this point. To'oTo'o can either remain at Tennessee to finish out his career as a Volunteer, or he comes to the Crimson Tide via transfer. He comes to Alabama and links back up here with one Coach Nick Saban. Now, Coach Saban is taking the process slow with the To'oTo'o family. He's playing chess right now with this entire deal. The holdup is Saban is waiting for the NCAA to have their one-time transfer rule. They're going to be voting on the one-time transfer rule coming up here in April. And should the rule pass, go forward, then Toa will be able to transfer out of Tennessee. But then once the NCAA one-time transfer rule gets handled, then you look at the SEC as a whole, because Commissioner Greg Sankey and the league has its own rule. And unless you have earned your degree, I'm not sure as to whether Toa has picked up that degree or not, but in the SEC, when you transfer within conference, they require you to at least sit out a year. So if the NCAA is able to approve the one-time transfer rule, then you look at the SEC. How does Greg Sankey go about this? How does Coach Saban work with Commissioner Sankey to have Toa cleared to play immediately within the conference coming to Alabama if this route is taken? Because where the family is concerned, they want to see Henry come to Alabama, if he's a transfer here, come play one season and then go off to the NFL draft. This is somebody of whom 6'2", 225 pounds, a former four-star who's got big experience within the conference. He's a 2-year starter for the Volunteers. He's played in 23 career games, wildly productive when you discuss his numbers, 148 career tackles, 76 of those last year to lead the Volunteers, 15 tackles for loss, 10 of those last season to lead the team, 1.5 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 5 quarterback hurries, and 1 interception. So we're seeing here high football IQ, high football intelligence, a big production, the ability to make plays in space, read the gaps, read his keys, dissect the football, flow to the area of the football, and make guys around him better. He's that much of a huge impact player. And while so many people have been talking about just the idea of having him at Alabama and how he can make this defense better, you still have some fans out there that go, why bring in Henry Toa? Alabama, does the Tide really need him, especially when you look at the guys already on the roster and discussing Christian Harris and Shane Lee and Jalen Moody and Alec Cahill and Jackson Bratt and Demoy Kennedy, and even some of the 2 early enrollees that are already on the roster right now for spring football, Deontay Lawson and Ian Jackson. Does Alabama really need to bring in a Henry Toa because that could offset, the chemistry that you already got with guys on the roster, guys that you have recruited, guys that you have signed, guys that have been, loyal to you, and they want to see you expound on that loyalty toward them by granting them that opportunity to take over at one of those 2 inside linebacker positions. And while I understand where some of those concerns may come from a few fans that want to see a player already on the roster take that opportunity at the middle linebacker position, I'll say this right here. To me, you can't pass up an opportunity to get somebody like a Henry Toa because from an NFL perspective right here, look at the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, going back to the 2017 draft, it had a chance to take Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes, and it passed on both guys to get Mitchell Trubisky, and right now the Bears are regretting, and they are dreading that decision, years after the fact. I mean, you had Deshaun Watson right there in the 2017 NFL draft. You had Patrick Mahomes right there. 2 elite, game-changing, marquee quarterbacks. One of them even has a Super Bowl, and you missed out on both. You passed on both to get Mitch Trubisky, and the Bears are regretting making that decision. So it's kind of the same thing here. Yes, you have guys already on Alabama's roster that can play that middle linebacker position, but a guy like Toa who has SEC experience, he's got the experience, he's a big-time playmaker, he's got the numbers, he's got the production, and when you put him with the Christian Harris, I mean, could you imagine how game-changing your inside linebacker room is going to be? Could you imagine how dominant your inside linebacker play is going to be on the field. I mean, you as fans have talked about it. We don't have the dominance of the inside linebacker. We don't have the ferocity at that position. We don't have the elite play at that position. We don't have the marquee playmakers at that spot. But getting a Henry To'oTo'o would put you at having a marquee playmaker. Going back to before the national championship game against Ohio State, even after the fact, Nick Saban has spoken to reporters multiple times on, we had an okay defense at Alabama. It wasn't special. It wasn't dominant. It wasn't elite. It wasn't up to our standard. It was just okay. And one way to go from being an okay defense to being back to elite, being back to ferocious, being back to dominant, being back to marquee is getting those prime time, game-changing playmakers at various positions, more importantly, inside linebacker, and Henry To'oTo'o is one of those game-changing players. So for the Crimson Tide, this is what Nick Saban's doing. He's kind of playing chess with this. He's waiting for the NCAA to make the ruling on the one-time transfer situation on that vote coming up in April. Once that vote is passed, should it be passed, then you look at the SEC. Can Alabama work with Commissioner Greg Sankey to potentially clear To'oTo'o to not only be able to transfer, but to be able to come in, play immediately here for the Crimson Tide? Because if you put him with a Christian Harris, you're talking about the combinations of guys like Reggie Ragland and Reuben Foster all over again. Guys like Rashaan Evans, Sean Deion Hamilton are all over again, and big-time linebacker tandems that have played here in seasons past. So Henry To'oTo'o, this is a big deal here if Alabama can land it. We'll take our first break here on the show. Don't touch that dial. We're just getting started. When we get back, we get into your phone calls, your thoughts, your questions, your concerns. We're talking Bama with you, the fans, after this.
You're watching In My Own Words with Stephen M. Smith, brought to you by We Own the Fourth Quarter. Get your four-finger bling necklace today by visiting weownthefourthquarter.com. Throw them foes up. Every sports fan deserves the proper representation. Whitwell Sports introduces to you the Title Towel. Wave that Title Towel in the air like you just don't care in support of Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Only $9.99 and it lasts a lifetime. Head on over to whitwellsports.com and get your Title Towel today.
Remember the taste of Grandma's delicious sweets? Emily's Heirloom Pound Cakes brings back those precious memories with just one bite. Each cake made from scratch. They make the perfect dessert to share with family and friends for any occasion, and ordering is easy. Visit Emily'sHeirloomPoundCakes.com. Click the online store and shop. Then pick up your fresh cake at the kitchen in downtown Homewood. Order yours online at Emily'sHeirloomPoundCakes.com. Emily's Heirloom Pound Cakes, making memories from scratch.
Thank you for tuning in. Show your support right now by clicking that like button. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button now and enable all notifications to make sure you don't ever miss any of the best Alabama football news, notes, and information right here on Touchdown Alabama.
We're back into the action here, folks, from the break on a Friday, TGIF edition of the show. New time, but still big content with yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine, in my own words here. And we're in the call segment right now, taking your calls, 205-448-1358. That's the number to call in to let your voice be heard on the show, 205-448-1358. And one more time, 205-448-1358. Guys, shout out the man, Jimmy Clay, donating that $25 via the Super Chats. Appreciate that love there coming from Jimmy Clay. As always, people, the daily Super Chat goals, $75 Super Chats, daily goal right there. Appreciate you guys helping us out. Jimmy Clay getting us started with his $25 donation right there. But we take our first call here of the evening. Well, we go to the topic right now first, as you guys are getting your first calls in here, 205-448-1358. Topic is Alabama Spring Day, Alabama Spring Game. The A-Day game, folks, is set for Saturday, April 17th at Bryant-Denny Stadium, Saturday, April 17th. Now, a time has not been made aware. Once that time is made known and the network in which the game will air is made known, we will get that to you. But the spring game, Saturday, April 17th at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And the question is, what are you the most excited about for this A-Day game? Last season, Alabama did not have a spring game because of the global coronavirus pandemic. Spring activities were canceled, shut down due to people trying to be safe, people trying to take precautions, things of that nature. But now that we have been able to have a full college football season, adjust to COVID, be on the up and up in terms of treatment, medical care, things of that aspect. And, with that being said, this upcoming spring, it just looks like Alabama is in a much better situation, and college football is in a much better situation to have spring practice. So for you as a fan, what are you the most excited about in discussing the spring game, the A-Day game for the Crimson Tide? For me, I feel like what I'm most excited about is seeing this. I'm most excited about seeing this quarterback competition. I'm really excited about seeing how does this unfold, how does this unveil between Bryce Young, Paul Tyson, and Jalen Milroe. But more so than that, how Bill O'Brien, as the new offensive coordinator taking over for Steve Sarkisian, how does he gel with these players? How does he get to know these players? How is he able to fit, with these guys, bringing in his philosophy, his scheme, his strategy, what he wants to do in terms of creating balance in the run and pass game? He brings over a wealth of knowledge, not only from the NFL and working with the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots, but also college football, him working with the Penn State Nittany Lions as a head coach. So for me, how does this quarterback competition play out? Does Bryce Young really snatch the bull by the horns and shows that, I can really run this position coming from California, coming from the West Coast as a former 5-star? Or is this the moment where we see Paul Tyson put together, hey, I'm bigger than just being, the great-grandson of Paul Bear Bryant. Now is my time. Now is my moment. Or could we see a situation where a Jalen Milroe coming from Texas? A lot of you as fans have said, don't sleep on this young man. Don't overlook this young man. Don't discredit this young man due to, in 2016, Jalen Hurts came into the program from Texas, and he dominated, he balled out, he pushed everybody else into the NCAA transfer portal. So how does this quarterback situation shape out? Will it be won in spring ball? Will it be won in the A-Day game? So really excited to see the quarterback competition, how it pans out, this spring, definitely in the spring game. And then, of course, Bill O'Brien, him coming in here, or him in here now, how will he be able to gel with this group, develop this group, mold this group, mentor this group? What will be his scheme? What will be his strategy? What will be his philosophy? That's just on my end here when you talk about the upcoming spring game and what's the excitement about that right there. But before we take our next break here, gotta shout out Jimmy Clay again. Bad man, Jimmy Clay gonna do it again by himself. Another $25 donation via the Super Chats. Appreciate Jimmy Clay for all that he is, the best donator in the building. Appreciate that from Jimmy Clay. We take our break right now. Upon our return, we will sit down with the lead scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine, our own Justin Smith, to talk about Elijah Brown, the 2022 tight end that's verbally committed, and other aspects of recruiting. We'll talk with Justin after this.
You know what we do With the start of the fourth quarter, we throw them foes up. But now, you don't have to wait until the fourth quarter. Get your four-finger bling necklace at weownthefourthquarter.com. It's the first and only logo that captures the essence of all Crimson Tide players and fans as we represent the legendary Alabama football fourth quarter dominance. Get your four-finger bling necklace right now at weownthefourthquarter.com. Get yours today and stun on them haters. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $7.95 per month, or pay $74.95 for a full year subscription. That's a yearly saving of $20. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide. Thank you for tuning in. Show your support right now by clicking that like button. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button now and enable all notifications to make sure you don't ever miss any of the best Alabama football news, notes, and information right here on Touchdown Alabama.
And we are back in live, folks, from the break on a Friday, TGIF edition of the show. Number one forum for all things Bama football news in my own words. Yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Different time, but still giving you this big content when you talk your favorite football program. But as we go to the In My Own Words hotline, well, not really the hotline, but we got him here virtually. We got our own Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for TDA. Justin, how you feeling, man? I hope you're doing good.
I'm doing great, Steven.
He's doing fantastic. Happy to have you here, Justin, on the show. Well, first and foremost, the big news happening in recruiting on today, and that being in the 2022 class, tight end Elijah Brown, four-star, has given his verbal commitment to the Tide. And after not being able to sign guys like Darnell Washington and also Eric Gilbert in a recent recruiting cycle, I know it got Jaleel Billingsley, but Alabama with Elijah Brown starting to kind of get back to recruiting those marquee, athletic, big-time tight ends that it wants to see at the capstone. How huge was Elijah Brown? Talk about what his commitment brings to the program.
It is really huge because Alabama has consistently attempted to go after those hybrid athletic tight ends. They have failed in the past to do so, especially in the recruiting class where they targeted Darnell Washington and Eric Gilbert. That set of tight ends were possibly two of the best tight ends to come out of high school at one particular time. So the Crimson Tide definitely wanted to add some hybrid athletic tight ends. And I think they hit a home run by landing Elijah Brown, the four-star tight end out of Wayne High School in Huber Heights, Ohio. When you look at what he brings to the table, it is a lot to like. You talk about a guy who stands at 6'6", weighs 240 pounds, so he has a big frame. And when I got an opportunity to talk with the head coach of Wayne High School in Roosevelt, he told me that they like to use Brown in a lot of different ways, including lining him up out at wide receiver because of the mismatch that he represents and what he can do as a wide receiver. But he is also a kid that is willing to block. The Crimson Tide's coaching staff loved that about him when they first offered him. They loved that he was not afraid to get his head into those type of plays and get dirty as a wide receiver and as a tight end to help as a run blocker. And they were really impressed with that. And his head coach told me that was just a result of his maturity, his continued growth. He talked about Brown being such a selfless player, saying he was a guy that is just willing to contribute, a guy that wants to do anything and everything to help his team win. And blocking is one of those things. So I'm pretty sure the Tide's coaching staff really likes that about Brown. But this is also a kid who has some soft hands. He's naturally athletic at 6'6", a guy who is hard to bring down. You can tell that he fights for extra yards at the end of runs. So this is a great pickup for the Tide in the 2022 recruiting class.
Now, Justin, when you look at just this recent cycle here for 2021, of the 27 nationally signed letters of intent, 7 of these individuals hail from the state of Texas, including the Brockemeyer boys and Kamar Wheaton as well. You also throw in Kendrick Blackshear from that state and JoJo Earl also. So 7 guys hail from the state of Texas. And after losing guys like Jeff Banks and Carl Scott, Charles Huff, Cal Flood, Steve Sarkisian, two other jobs. Sarkisian, Flood, and Banks all at the University of Texas. Some Bama fans are kind of concerned about, does the program lose the state of Texas in recruiting? I know it cares about, getting players from all over, whether it's Louisiana, whether it's Florida, Georgia, Alabama, whatever state has the big-time prospects that Alabama's trying to get, you want to grab every state. But just due to the success that it had in the state of Texas, fans are kind of wondering, with the coaches that have left, does Alabama lose ground of the Lone Star State, Justin? What are you seeing there in terms of this recruiting process? Do you feel like Bama loses the state of Texas?
I don't think they lose the state completely, but they may lose some ground. All depends on how successful the University of Texas is under Steve Sarkisian. When you look at Texas with Sarkisian as their head coach, the program is looking really attractive to recruits just based on the way Steve Sarkisian coached the Alabama's offense when he was in Tuscaloosa. So there's no denying that the University of Texas is looking very attractive. And if that program can be somewhat successful in Steve Sarkisian's first year, I think that it's going to be huge for them on the recruiting trail. I think this really relies on the way the University of Texas performs under Steve Sarkisian on the football field and on the recruiting trail in terms of those in-state kids for University of Texas. I don't think it really relies on how the Crimson Tide will continue to recruit the state, because I think they will still do fairly well, but it's going to be difficult if the University of Texas can show that they are a program on the rise and they continue to be attractive. It is going to be really difficult to continue to pull prospects out of the state of Texas. You also have to look at Oklahoma. They really like to raid Texas as well. So Texas is going to be a battleground if Texas becomes a juggernaut on the recruiting trail, if Steve Sarkisian can beat that program up to that standard.
If you're just tuning into the show, ladies and gentlemen, we got our own Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for TDA, virtually here on the line, talking 2021 recruiting, 2022 recruiting and beyond here on the show. And so, Justin, big thought right here is, so as you look at this 2022 cycle moving forward here, what looks like it could be the most important state, or what's the area that looks to be the one where Alabama could get its biggest top targets from?
Well, it's going to be similar to those. It's going to be those same states that they have continued to recruit. When you look at the state of Florida, of course, in-state recruiting is going to be huge. You're looking at the talent inside the state. You have Jeremiah Alexander, Curtis Perry, five-star running back Emmanuel Henderson, who is set to announce his commitment early next month. You have a four-star cornerback who could be a five-star defensive back in Traquan Fegans. You have a four-star defensive end in Justice Finkley out of here at Trustfield, along with his teammate in Amari Kelly, a four-star athlete out of Trustfield, who the Crimson Tide are currently recruiting to play wide receiver. So the state of Alabama is going to be huge for the Tide. Florida is going to continue to be huge. When you look at schools like IMG Academy, the Tide is targeting a couple of players from there. Of course, they're going to continue to go to the state of Texas. Georgia looks as if it's going to get a little bit more attention from the Tide here in this 2022 recruiting cycle compared to them only pulling Terrence Ferguson from Georgia in the 2021 recruiting cycle. When you look at the 22 class, you have a couple of running backs, a couple of defensive backs hailing from the state of Georgia. You also have one of the Tide's top defensive back targets in Jake Pope, hailing from Georgia as well. So it is going to be those similar states that the Tide has continued to recruit over the last couple of recruiting cycles. When you look at states like Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and Texas, but I think Tennessee will get a little bit more attention this time around.
Last one here, Justin, on our end here on the show, Touchdown Alabama Magazine. In my own words, we got Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for TDA, virtually here on the line. Justin, you're going to be attending the Southern Express 7-on-7 camp here this weekend. A lot of guys at this camp that have Alabama offers and more along with that. Who are some of the guys that you're really looking forward to watching here in this exhibition, in this camp?
It is a long list of guys to pay attention to. One of the top guys is the guy I talked about earlier, Amari Kelly, the four-star athlete out of here at Trussville High School. Crimson Tide really seem to like him. They really seem to be recruiting him pretty hard in this 2022 recruiting cycle. He will compete with Southern Express, so I'll definitely have my eyes on him. I seen him play during his junior season on this past season. I actually saw him in action against Vestavia Hills, and I was really impressed. I actually set up an interview with them after that game, and before I can even get the story out, Alabama offered them. So I am really interested in seeing what Amari Kelly does at this particular event. But there are guys from a lot of different classes, including the 2023 class. When you look at possibly the number one cornerback in the nation, and Tony Mitchell, he will be in action along with a lot of different talented players from across the southern United States. So I'm definitely excited to attend the event.
He's Justin Smith, ladies and gentlemen, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama Magazine, joining us here virtually to talk about Elijah Brown, the 2022 four-star verbal commit at tight end, and other things on the recruiting trail as he prepares to have this weekend at the 7-on-7 Express Camp. Justin, take care of yourself, man. Be good. Appreciate you coming on. You stay safe out there.
You do the same as always, Stephen.
Appreciate having Justin on the show talking Crimson Tide recruiting here as Nick Saban trying to get this 2022 class and 2023 class set and going here at the Capstone. We take our next break right now. Don't touch that dial because upon our return, we jump back into the phone lines to take your phone calls, your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas here on Tide football. We'll be back on In My Own Words.
Don't touch that dial. Call in right now as we're taking your calls up next on In My Own Words with Stephen M. Smith. Brought to you by We Own the Fourth Quarter. Visit weownthefourthquarter.com now to get your four-finger bling necklace. You know what we do at the start of the fourth quarter. We throw them foes up. But now you don't have to wait until the fourth quarter. Get your four-finger bling necklace at weownthefourthquarter.com. It's the first and only logo that captures the essence of all Crimson Tide players and fans as we represent the legendary Alabama football fourth quarter dominance. Get your four-finger bling necklace right now at weownthefourthquarter.com. Get yours today and stun on them haters. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $7.95 per month or pay $74.95 for a full year subscription. That's a yearly saving of $20. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide. Thank you for tuning in. Show your support right now by clicking that like button. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button now and enable all notifications to make sure you don't ever miss any of the best Alabama football news, notes, and information right here on Touchdown Alabama.
We are back in here, folks, from the break here on a Friday TGIF edition of the show. Number one show for Crimson Tide football news. In my own words, yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Folks, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and like the show. Give the show a thumbs up here. Also, hit that subscribe button. Turn all of those notifications on so that way you can have the best news, notes, alerts, and coverage on your favorite program, the Crimson Tide. Also got to remind you guys of mybookie.ag. MyBookie.ag, latest sponsor here to TDA. So if you feel like you got the skills to pay the bills, if you feel like you are fortunate, you feel like you can really win you some money wagering on these football games, check out our guys here at mybookie.ag. You make the right play and sign up today at mybookie.ag. And when you do make the right play and sign up, you use the promo code TDAlabama to get your deposit matched halfway, all the way up to $1,000. You can't beat that with a stick. Check out our guys, mybookie.ag. That's mybookie.ag, using that promo code TDAlabama. Guys, shout out Roll Tide and Rise Up one time. Roll Tide and Rise Up. That $25 donation via the Super Chats, and that's the goal. We have hit the goal. Roll Tide and Rise Up. That $75 donation, a $25 donation. We've hit the goal. And Jimmy Clay came right behind him with $25 on his own end. So Roll Tide and Rise Up with the man Jimmy Clay have helped us reach our daily Super Chat goal of $75 Super Chats. Appreciate you guys for the love, the passion, and what you do. Appreciating Roll Tide and Rise Up and Jimmy, the baddest donator in the man Clay, helping us out here on the show. We also take your phone calls right now, 205-448-1358, the number to call in. We'll take a call right now. You're live on the show. What's going on?
Hey, this is Al, Big Al from Georgia. Thanks for taking my call. I'm loving everything we're talking about today, especially with Toto. Personally, I like the guys up front. We're a two-gap team, and we can dominate two-gap, and we got the guys to do it. I think the guys we got in play right now, the young bucks, I don't think we need him. He had his chance to sign with us 2 years ago. He had that shot, okay? He chose Tennessee. You lose, okay? We're moving on. But we got some absolute studs up front. The game is won up front. Alabama's always dominated. I think we're coming back to that right there now. And with the talent we got in the back end, them guys can dominate two gap. We can roll 8 guys in. Hey, all I say is that we play more guys at the linebacker position to give them experience up in the season, and we're going to be in lockdown mode.
Now, and Big Al, a lot of people would agree with your statement. They look at the guys like, you got a Shane Lee who chose Alabama. You got a Cajo, a Moody, a DeMoy Kennedy, a Jackson Bratton. You have guys on the roster that chose to tie, that were loyal, and they look to see that loyalty being shown back to them. So a lot of people feel the same way you do.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for taking my call. This is the first time I've called in. Born and raised in Tuscaloosa, been Roll Tide since 1968. Football coach for 18 years over here in the state of Georgia. And, I bleed crimson. But I'm so excited about the team we got coming up. So excited about Freddie Roach coaching the D-line up. And Tim Smith and DJ and LeBron coming back. We're going to be absolutely animals up front. I just think that our defense is going to be like top 5, top 3 this. We're back to the standard. We're back to the standard, and let them young bucks fly around on behind the line of scrimmage, And Toto, hey, you Toto on down the road. You had your chance 2 years ago. Roll Tide.
Appreciate that call there coming from Big Al here to start us off here on a Friday. And I mean, a lot of people feel the same way he does. You got a lot of guys on the roster already. You let them have that opportunity. But at the same time, I still feel like this. Toa has big experience, and that's very tempting to pass on that big experience. I go back to the analogy I brought up, the Chicago Bears. I mean, there was Deshaun Watson right there in the draft. There was Patrick Mahomes right there in the draft, and it took Mitchell Trubisky, and it's paying for it. So I look at Toa. If you put him with the Christian Harris, that could be something nasty, really, really good right there. But at the same time, I see the point of other fans. You signed to Shane Lee. He was loyal. You signed to Jalen Moody. You signed to Alec Cajo. You signed to DeMoy Kennedy. You signed to Jackson Bratton. You signed to Deontay Lawson. You signed to Ian Jackson. Let's see one of these guys that we already have here on the roster, and let's see what they can do. So I see the point on both ends of the coin. We will see how Nick Saban goes about this whole situation here. But as you continue to get your calls in, 205-448-1358 here. Interesting topic of the day, Mac Jones here. I've been watching a lot of these NFL draft shows on ESPN and other networks that are talking about these quarterbacks. And so Mac Jones, the kind of notion they're putting out here is, once you get past Trevor Lawrence, everybody else is a question mark. You're doubting them. You're kind of skeptical of them. They're not, clear-cut guys. You got these analysts going, don't gamble on these quarterbacks because everybody else after Trevor Lawrence is not a sure thing. Everybody else after Trevor Lawrence is capable of being a bust. And what kind of sort of, irks me is everybody else in college football can have weapons, but when it comes to Alabama, can't have those weapons because they look at, it's the weapons that made the quarterback. It's the weapons that made Mac Jones who he is. It's not the fact that Mac Jones was good. It's not the fact that Jones was dominant. It's the fact that Jones had all the weapons. Well, I don't see anyone talking about Trevor Lawrence having Justin Ross, who was a weapon, T. Higgins, who was a weapon, Amari Rodgers, who was a weapon, Hunter Renfrow, who was a weapon, Travis Etienne, who was a big weapon, and he made the Clemson offense go. I remember in the semifinal game this past year, Ohio State took Etienne out the game, and Trevor Lawrence really, truly struggled. But no one talks about that. No one talks about Trevor Lawrence having E.J. Williams and having Cornell Powell. He had all of these weapons, but no one puts Trevor Lawrence's weapons against him. They just talk about him being a dynamic quarterback. You look at Justin Fields. Justin Fields had Chris Olave and had K.J. Hill and had Benjamin Victor and had Garrett Wilson and had Jamison Williams and had J.K. Dobbins and had, the tight ends that Ohio State had. The Buckeyes had weapons. You even look at a guy like Zach Wilson out of BYU. He had a 1,000-yard receiver by the name of Dax Milne. BYU had weapons. Even the kid from North Dakota State, Trey Lance, has weapons. But when it comes to Alabama, they look at Mac Jones. Well, Mac had weapons. So we can't really say how good Mac is for real, for real. I'm going to say this. Over half the season last year, Mac played, if you don't count Najee Harris, catching passes out the backfield, Mac had one first-round pick he was throwing to over half the season, and that was Devontae Smith. He lost Jalen Waddle against Tennessee to an ankle injury. So about half the season, Mac Jones had one first-round pick he was throwing to. That was Devontae Smith, and Mac was killing it out there. 4,500 passing yards, 41 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions, broke records, set records, All-American, Heisman finalist. And here's the big thing. If I'm NFL pundits, if I'm NFL coaches, scouts, general managers, I'm not listening to a lot of what these pundits are saying, because I look at this right here. In the games that Mac was doubted in, go back and look at all of those games that Mac was doubted in. He played at an exponentially high level against Georgia. What's the thought process? He's going against this Georgia defense, best defense that Kirby's ever had, best defense in the SEC, best defense in the country, best group on paper. I don't know. I don't believe that Mac can handle this Georgia defense. Mac goes up against Georgia, goes off for 418 yards, 4 touchdowns, and you beat Georgia by 17. But you look at LSU, people are going, oh, but this is LSU. Oh, but he's going into Death Valley. Oh, but he's going up against Mike the Tiger. Mac's not going to be able to handle that type of environment. And Ed O is going to dominate, Tiger Stadium. Like, Mac is not ready for that environment. Mac Jones goes in there, throws for over 300 yards, 3 to 4 touchdowns, puts up 55 points on LSU, the most the Tigers have ever allowed in the rivalry since it started back in 1895. Then you go to the Auburn game. Folks was like, oh no, Saban's got COVID and he's experiencing symptoms. He's not going to be on the field. I don't know if Mac's going to be able to handle this. Auburn's got that defense. I don't know. Mac goes out there, 302 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, wins 42-13. Then folks go, oh, but look at Florida. Kyle Trask and those weapons that Florida has. I don't know if Mac's going to be able to contend with that. Mac Jones, another 400-yard game, 5 touchdowns in Ohio State. But he's facing the Buckeyes, and he's facing Ryan Day, and he's facing Justin Fields. I don't know if Mac can handle it every game. Mac's been doubted in. He loves the doubt. He loves the criticism. He loves the naysayers. It fuels him. It has him playing to the upper echelon, if you will. If I'm NFL scouts, coaches, GMs, I'm not listening to all the stuff being put out here by these analysts. I'm watching the tape for myself, because the one thing that people not Mac on is, okay, is it him or is it the Alabama wide receivers? Mac goes down to the Senior Bowl now, not throwing to a single Bama wideout. He's throwing to Racey McMath of LSU, Kadarius Toney of Florida, Trayvon Grimes of Florida, Amari Rodgers of Clemson. He's throwing to other guys. And he's got the chemistry, he's got the camaraderie, he's got the timing with these other guys not from the Alabama football roster, and he blew everybody away. Everybody in Mobile was talking nobody else but Mac Jones. So he showed you my preparation, my timing, my work ethic is what makes me who I am. And we have seen so many people, so many teams pass on quarterbacks that they need. We've seen so many teams pass on quarterbacks that they need to draft, and they regret it, and they're miserable for pass on these guys. When you look at a Mac Jones, look, we've seen it. Proof in the pudding, big time playmaker. Watch the tape. The tape speaks for itself. Mac Jones is a guy that if you take him, you will not regret taking him. The guy's a big time playmaker. Before we take our next break right now, guys, shout out Big Al Sanders. Big Al Sanders donating that $25 with the super chats, helping us out here. Appreciate that love coming from one Big Al Sanders. We take a break right now. Upon our return, we'll tidy up some loose ends here in discussing, who are the freshman enrollees that I feel like can make the biggest impact in spring football. We'll talk that after this.
If you're an avid Alabama Crimson Tide fan and you love to flaunt it, then show your Alabama Crimson Tide support by grabbing the All-Bama sneakers. They feature bold Crimson Tide graphics, so no one will be able to question where your allegiance lies. When you add these sweet sneakers to your Alabama Crimson Tide collection, go to stsfootwear.com and use the code TDAlabama for $15 off your purchase. That's code TDAlabama for $15 off your purchase. Go to stsfootwear.com and get your All-Bama sneakers today. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $7.95 per month, or pay $74.95 for a full year subscription. That's a yearly saving of $20. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide. Thank you for tuning in. Show your support right now by clicking that like button. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button now and enable all notifications to make sure you don't ever miss any of the best Alabama football news, notes, and information right here on Touchdown Alabama.
And we are back in here, folks, from the break of the number one forum for Crimson Tide football news on a Friday, TGIF edition of the show, coming from the Magic City of Birmingham. In my own words, yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Got to go tongue-tied there, but I'm good. Before we get into the final topic of conversation, got to remind you guys of TDAwear.com. That is TDAwear.com. So why am I doing this? I'll explain to you right now. So, for all of you fans still overjoyed with the Tide's national championship, check out our championship collection merch. Do this right now. Grab you an 18 of them things, folk, t-shirt, hoodie, or sweatshirt, as well as our Got 18 We Do shirts. Design on these shirts, which features all 18 championship years on the back. Head over to TDAwear.com right now, TDAwear.com, and go to the Championship Collections tab and get you that merch today. Show them that support here for Nick Saban, for the University of Alabama, the student athletes, and us here at Touchdown Alabama Magazine. But now we get into final discussion here on today's show, and it goes to the early enrollees for the 2021, this recent recruiting cycle, that are currently right now on the roster for spring football. According to RollTide.com, there are 15 15 of the 27 names, as you're seeing them right now on screen here, 15 of the 27 names that came in this class are on the roster getting ready here for spring football. How many of these guys can create an impact? How many of these guys can push, can fight, can battle, can win starting spots here on the team going into the upcoming campaign here in the fall? Of the guys listed here on the roster, and these names include, you got Tommy Brockermeyer, who's enrolled early, James Brockermeyer, J.C. Latham, JaQuincy McKinstry, Terrence Ferguson Jr., Christian Leary, Deontay Lawson. Just you got some dudes here, Asia Hall, Ja'Cory Brooks on this roster already to push for an opportunity to earn a starting spot here in the spring. But of the 15 names here, I see 6. I see about 6 names that can really come in here and push for playing time and earn a starting spot here in spring ball. And starting things off with my first 2 names here, this goes to the offensive line, J.C. Latham and Tommy Brockermeyer. I really think these two have a chance to come in here and really earn a starting spot. And the reason why I feel this way is, to me, when you have your 3 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster, all right-handed, Bryce Young, Paul Tyson, Jalen Milroe, you got to have somebody that can protect the blind side, of the quarterback. So for me, if I'm Coach Saban, I'm taking Evan Neal, flipping him to left tackle, Emil Ekiyor, flipping him to left guard, put all of my experience on the left side of the offensive line, which opens the right side for competition. Now, honestly, I want to see what Pierce Quick does at that right guard spot potentially. I know Alabama's got guys like Damian George and Javion Cohan, also guys like Tanner Bowles and Amari Kite and Tommy Brown. It's got guys with experience, but seeing these two, J.C. Latham and Tommy Brockermeyer, what can they do on this offensive line? Brockermeyer comes from a family that has played in the NFL. His father, Blake Brockermeyer, former NFL offensive lineman, played at the college level at the University of Texas, so he knows the technique of the game being taught by his father. Tommy does. So when you look at J.C. Latham, his best friend Evan Neal, coming out of IMG Academy down there in Bradenton, Florida. I'm pretty sure Evan Neal has talked to Latham about, hey bro, if you come here and you end up playing guard your freshman year, hey, don't feel bad. I came here, I played guard my freshman year. You buy into the process, you do what these coaches want you to do, and then you're going to get your opportunities. But both guys 5 stars, both guys physical at 6'6", 6'7". Both guys have the wingspan. Both guys have some really strong technique. Want to see what both guys do primarily on the right side of that offensive line. Should be fun watching Latham and Brockermeyer. Those are the first 2. For my third name, give me Christian Leary at wide receiver. With JoJo Earl coming into the summer, Christian Leary has a chance to be that guy that can win a starting spot on the return aspect, kick return, punt return, but he can also potentially win a starting spot in that slot position at wide receiver. Dr. Matt Ray is already starting to work with him where his speed is concerned to get him even faster than what he already is. And then on top of this, wow, you've got a Slade Bolden who can play in the slot. You've got a couple of other guys that can play in that position. Leary offers you that pure breakaway speed that Henry Ruggs had during his time for the Crimson Tide. And a lot of people, when they look at Leary, they compare him to Henry Ruggs. So want to see how quickly can Leary, how quickly can he learn that slot position? Can he learn that slot role? How fast can he adjust to the system and really take a starting opportunity? But he would be my third name here that can make a huge impact in spring football. My fourth name, going over the defense here, give me Deontay Lawson at that linebacker position, coming out of Mobile Christian High School in South Alabama here. and a guy that size-wise at 6'2", 225 pounds, he has the playing style of a C.J. Mosley. Not a C.J. Mosley, excuse me, more of a Dante Hightower, C.J. Mosley, but a guy that can track the football. He can go sideline for sideline. He can fit gaps. Really, really solid IQ, strong football IQ. Can sink back into coverage, create those turnovers, those interceptions, bat balls down, break a pass. It's just a full cerebral of an inside linebacker, and to have him be on campus early, how fast can he adjust? How fast can he pick up the system? How fast can he really, gel and make that sort of an impact? Really want to see what Deontay Lawson can do, that size at 6'3", 225. Definitely an intriguing factor there. The next name here at number 5, JaQuincy McKinstry in that defensive backfield. And it's a backfield that is loaded with talent. To me, the only two guys that are safe in that secondary in terms of their position would be Jordan Battle at strong safety and Malachi Moore in the secondary also. Everybody else aside from those two, it's a competition. Coach Saban talked about it. We're evaluating everybody. We're looking at everybody. We're trying to see who could be our best 5 to 6 guys on the field. So it's open season for everybody else not named Battle and Malachi Moore. So for JaQuincy, how quickly can he come in here and snatch a spot? Because he's very gifted, he's very talented, his skill set is off the charts. According to our own Justin Smith, he talked about it. McKinstry, the most pure athlete to come from this state in quite some time. So how fast can he get in here? How fast can he make his presence known now that he's in here and earn a starting spot here beginning in spring ball? And then last but not least, give me Robbie Oots at tight end. And he's interesting because with the Tide losing Miller Forrestall and Carl Tucker to the next level here, you bring back Jaleel Billingsley. That's your only big name. Now you got Major Tennyson back on the roster. You've got a tight end and Caden Clark coming in the same class with Oots here, but the only big name that we've seen sort of pop so far now coming back is Jaleel Billingsley. So Oots is in a situation where he can quickly become the second big tight end as a pass catcher within this offense. When you look at Bill O'Brien, during his time with the New England Patriots, he ran a lot of those double tight end sets, and they were very explosive when you discuss having Rob Gronkowski and before his demise and tragic death, Aaron Hernandez. He got both of those guys to pop at the tight end position. Bill O'Brien got both of those guys to play huge football, big production, marquee numbers at that position. So looking at Jaleel Billingsley and the potential that a Robbie Oots can give you at that spot, seeing how it's kind of open there. You bring back Jaleel Billingsley, you got Major Tennyson, you also have Cameron Latu. Can he finally manifest into being a solid tight end at that spot, moving over from that outside linebacker position? There are some guys that Alabama returns at tight end, but Robbie Oots is in a very good spot here where he can come in, really blow some people away, and have success there starting in spring ball. But those are my 6 guys there. J.C. Latham, Tommy Brockemeyer on the offensive line, Christian Leary at wide receiver, Deontay Lawson at linebacker, JaQuincy McKinstry in the secondary, and Robbie Oots at tight end. Just 6 of those 15 names already on the roster as early enrollees that I feel like can make an impact here in spring football. But as always, Bama Nation, you want the best in news, notes, and coverage on your Crimson Tide. Very simple and easy to access this. You get it by downloading the Touchdown Alabama Magazine app. You can download it from the iPhone App Store if you're rocking Team Apple, Google Play Store if you just so happen to have the Android phone. For your audio listening needs, we got you right here: iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker, Overcast.fm, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio. We got you covered. If the good and gracious Lord sees fit, I'll be back on Monday continuing the conversation that is Tide football. As always, Bama fans, you can purchase individual copies of Touchdown Alabama magazine, have those sent to your door. Check out that link in the description. Also, the print edition, the print issue of TDA coming soon. If you want to know how to get that print issue, you go to touchdownalabama.com, hit join, become a subscriber today, and you can get that print issue. That link will also be in the description as well. Also, you can copy that 4-finger bling necklace, 4-finger bling jewelry, courtesy of our guys at weownthefourthquarter.com. That link is in the description. Check them out. One more time, gotta shout out Jimmy Clay, Roll Tide and Rise Up, and Big Al Sanders helping us out. The daily super chat goal of $75. They smashed that. They threw it in the bag. Appreciate the support, the love from you guys showing us here at TDA in my own words. Until next time, though, folks, husbands, love your wives. Wives, appreciate, value those husbands. Children, continue to do the right thing, the legitimate thing, to not be bored. As always, get you those 3 meals a day, those 3 hearty laughs a day. Protect yourself, protect the loved ones around you. Enjoy your weekend. Until next time, folks, spit in my own words.